Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rose Horowitz. I am a Pulitzer-nominated journalist and the founder of Women to Follow. I'm so excited today to bring you my 11th episode of Women to Follow. And I'm going to be introducing you to my guest, Kelly Hoey, who will join us shortly. And let me just tell you a little about Women to Follow. In 2018, I put out a hashtag with Women to Follow with the idea to amplify women's voices on social media. After reading a story about how all the reporters in DC, only, primarily 3/4 of them, both men and women, retweeted and followed men. And so I said, let's name 3 women to follow. And it took off. So it had 12 million views in the first 2 weeks. And it was very exciting to get all these names out there. And there's now a Woman to Follow Twitter list that has about 1,800 names, but it keeps growing. All of this, this show, I first did it as Twitter threads, profiles of 17 different women. And now I'm doing this show. And I want to thank Stephen Kaplan, who's my producer, who does an amazing job. And also thank my sponsor, Women in Tech International, which has many thousands of members all over the world. And I hope you will join us. You can be watching the show on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube on my YouTube channel, which is Woman to Follow. And I think without any more fuss, I can't wait to introduce Kelly Hoey. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Rose. Good to see you.
Yeah. It's been a while since I think I've met you once in person. Am I right?
Obviously, our good friend Tammy Ellen McLaughlin will probably post up that picture.
Yes.
Hey, Paula. But Tammy Ellen will post up that picture of Joyce Sullivan. Woohoo! But Tammy will post up that picture of when you got a free copy of my book at that IBL event back when we could stand next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I won it in a raffle, and I stood with a picture next to you.
And I think I had brown hair then.
I don't know. But here's my book. Well worn. Yeah.
I like that. I like it. It's well worn. I like it. Oh, there's Tammy. There's Tammy. I can see her in the comments. She's on it. She knows the picture I'm talking about.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll read a few comments. Tammy Ellen is here. She's saying, what?
Yeah.
Anna Arriaga is here from Long Island. Tammy Ellen is on it, of course.
Yeah, I know she is, yeah.
Paula Kiger is joining us from Tallahassee, and Joyce Sullivan is in the house. And I saw her in a conversation with you recently on your water cooler, which you have revived, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. It was like time to bring back the water cooler and do it in a different format. So those who are old enough to remember, I said I needed a cross between Hollywood Squares and the McNeil-Lehrer report. I get so many career questions, and I remember I had a massive list, and I started going through them, and I was like, you know what? This person's a better person to answer this, and I bet so-and-so's got an insight. So I thought, let's do this as more of a panel kind of riff off one question. And so we've, I would say, revived that, and can be found on my LinkedIn profile, YouTube channel, and in my Twitter stream as well.
Oh, awesome. I think you were a guest when the pandemic happened. I was working every day with Sri Srinivasan on a show that the hashtag was Sri COVID call 19. No, Sri COVID-19 call.
Oh my God.
Anyway, that was fun to type every minute. But anyway, and you were a guest along with Rupa, Sri's wife, and we did a Woman to Follow show. And then afterwards, I don't know if we helped you get motivated, but then I saw you started going live with your, I don't know if it was connected, but you started going live and doing these water cooler moments, which I thought were a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, but part of it was like, it was easier to, in some ways, move to video than just typing in, Twitter streams. So, maybe it was partly the ease, the platform we're using. I love StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard. We love you. But also too, you do these things and it's such a greater connection than just, not that I don't love Twitter chats and stuff, but, hearing people and seeing them, even in this format, is just really lovely. Yeah.
And it's more interactive, the way we can do it with getting comments from everybody. So that's fun and a benefit. It looks a lot better than Zoom too. So yeah. So let me ask you what you're up to now. I know. Let me go back. I have printed out this, which is.
Oh my God! You 70 pages. You printed it all out.
Yes.
Bless you. Well, yeah, because Build Your Dream, Rent Your Work. Happy birthday! My book turned 5 in January, and the content is still relevant. It still continues to sell. And someone suggested to me that I should do an updated version of the book. But I'll be frankly honest with you. Writing a book that has pandemic and COVID all through it. Like, I don't know if you've read any books that have been published that mention COVID and pandemic through it, and it's kind of depressing. So I thought, no, I don't want to do that. But is there some way that I can, thank readers that have been such champions of the book, and is there some updated stories? And so that's when last fall I wrote the book bonus, which is 70 pages of free content. Woohoo! Easy to download, no pop-ups, no add your list to named anything, just hit download. So thank you for downloading and reading it. And I know we're going to have one.
I did have it on my iPad too, but somehow I was, maybe because of the show, I was, taking notes and putting sticky notes in and stuff. So
well, we can dive into it. And I know we're going to bring on in a little bit, we're going to bring on one of the people interviewed in there, which is like totally fantastic. So yeah.
Well, it was really cool because, it was, I think, just what a lot of us need to read, which is these stories of how people changed and pivoted and, still sometimes, kept their career, but had to make new contacts and had to figure out new ways to do it.
Right. Because as you and I have talked about, our networks have shrunk as a result of COVID.
Let me just go back a step because, some people could, like, in some ways, my network grew because I've been doing all these shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I've met so many people, like, 300 episodes with Sri and a doctor show. She's on call. And then I've, gotten involved in social audio. And so I have a friend in Australia, Malaysia,
Right.
But I speak to them more than I can see my friends that I know a long time, because it's now winter in Connecticut and, you can't go to, not going yet to restaurants outside.
Right.
So, but on the whole, like you said, what has happened to most, for most of us,
I mean, and the study I like is one social scientist did, and it was at the beginning of the, I'm going to say sort of 2021. And on average, our networks have shrunk like 16%. Exactly as you're saying, that some networks are based on activity, like going out for dinner or going to, going to play softball or going to the office, right? And that network has shrunk. So you have that scenario going on. And some relationships might get deeper because we spend more time with them. So you are one of these people who have, because of your breadth of your interest in activities, right? And your work in terms of doing all those shows with Sri, you're one of the people in this sort of, group who has actually expanded your network.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that is really, that's different than most people. So,
Mhm.
when sort of people thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to expand my network? It's like, okay, where are the opportunities, to engage? Where are the opportunities to, I don't know, be of service, roll up your sleeves, offer to help out? Where do engaging in a Twitter chat, or we've seen the conversation, people have like looking on the comments for the show tonight. Some people are on Facebook, some people are on YouTube. Like, where are you engaging with the content? Not just you and me, but how can you be networking with the other people who are engaging with the content to expand and grow your network, or to further and deepen some relationships?
Right. Yeah, and I think that one of the things you say that's interesting before we bring on our guest is that our other guest, my other guest, is that is this a new normal, or what we need to be doing, what we always should be doing, which is to really be in close and consistent touch with people.
I mean, from reading my book, Build Your Dream Network, that I've always said that we should be amphibious, because these technologies, right, have expanded who our network in our community and where we can find like-minded souls. And some people are going to have a relationship building preference that is first face to face, and other people are going to have a network building preference that is first, text. So being amphibious and being able to, solidify relationships that in real life, in person, by enhancing them because of your offline, your online engagements, and vice versa. That I think is where all of us need to go. Not to think that the coffee dates and the in-person conference and like that's the real networking, the schmoozy stuff, and this other stuff we can get over it when the pandemic's over. No, this is how we build relationships. We use all of these tools, and by using all of these tools, you might open some doors and meet some people that you never imagined having relationships with. Like for you to be able to say, hey, you've got this friend. I've met a wonderful photographer in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and the relationship started because he posted about reading my book on Instagram, and he tagged me. And so Kid Chan and I would have like a little, every once in a while, like a little thing on Instagram. And then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, because of the pandemic and because of Clubhouse, and because of the comfort with using this video technology, like the relationship in terms of someone who was sort of there on the periphery and acquaintance level network is all of a sudden taking these big steps in closer. Like, I can't wait to be able to get on a plane and go to Kuala Lumpur and like see my friend Kid Chan. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's really, I think I remember you talking with him on Clubhouse, actually.
Yeah. But it all started with an Instagram post. But there's a really great example of a relationship that has gotten stronger as a result of the pandemic.
Right. But a lot of my friends who are not as involved on social media, they say it's a time suck, and they will go to in-person events, but they'll say, being on Twitter or Facebook is just a time suck. And I don't think, they see this inherent value in making these connections that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a class of people sort of think it's this other thing and it's marketing and it's whatever. It's like, no, this is where human beings aggregate. Yeah. And it's all in, like, are you using the technology in a human way, or are you allowing the platform to drive your behavior? So of course it can be a time suck if you just sit there and scroll away.
If you don't do anything with it, right?
Right. Yeah. Whereas, I kind of, as you know, I look at LinkedIn as the office, and, Facebook is friends and family. I kind of think Instagram's sort of like a yard sale. You think about when you go to
put your stuff up there and see what people think.
Well, no, but I think of them like physical spaces, and how do we behave? So like LinkedIn being the office or the industry conference, like how do you behave there? Twitter, the cocktail party. Facebook, like your family sitting around a Thanksgiving Day, the dining room table at Sunday dinner or Thanksgiving. And then I've really been trying to think of an analogy for Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like a yard sale, because you show up at a yard sale, and there might be some people, who are friends, and you're just having a friendly conversation. And then there's other people who might have something you want to buy. And so you're kind of like, how much is that vase? Do I want to spend $2 on it? Right. So it's kind of that church yard sale kind of, or the garage sale kind of vibe there, that there's a multitude of relationships and engagements. But bring how you behave in that human space, use technology the same way, and you'll have such I'm going to say, much more meaningful and colorful and vibrant kind of relationship with it than if you just think, oh, it's that technology thing and we'll be over it and it's not real, right?
Yeah. I like thinking of it as different houses. That's cool.
And I'm glad you like my, yard sale analogy.
Yeah, I like just browsing at yard sales. I don't really like people texting me, what they're selling, but I like browsing when they don't know I'm looking. So.
Or you think of like a farmer's market. You might be there to get vegetables, but then you run into your friends and you have a conversation on, something completely unrelated to buying vegetables at a farmer's market. But that's sort of, I think of Instagram. People are using it for business. People are using it for personal, and it's a whole hodgepodge of things. So I'm like, oh, kind of like the yard sale.
Yeah. So I'd love to. So you mentioned various people in your book that you revisit. Some of them you revisit from your book. I mean, your supplement that you revisit from your book, and others I think that you've discovered, because, or you want to highlight because they have an interesting story about what they did during the pandemic.
Yeah, I would love us to bring Erin on, because Erin is, first of all, I think she's done a phenomenal job. Erin!
Hi, Erin. Thank you so much for joining us on such short notice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Actor and creative director of the Seeing Place Theater. But I was thinking about it. Erin and I met because of our mutual friend, Casey Erin Clark, founder of Vital Voice Training. And we met, and it's all been virtual. Erin, I don't think until I showed up at your play, I'm trying to think, we hadn't. But
no, not at all. I mean, of course, we had the wonderful video opportunities to see one another, but no, the in-person didn't happen until we were finally able to have an in-person theater company event.
Right.
So and that was a good probably 10 months after we had initially met, maybe even almost a year. Yeah,
because they're thinking, because it's going to be 2020 and then all of 2021. And I want to say, I mean, this is, for people, this is like a classic example. Like, we have a mutual connection. So we've had this warm introduction through a mutual connection. We have used digital tools and, our human capacity for interest and curiosity to kind of get to know each other. And I'm just thinking, when I finally got to see you on stage and put my arm around you at the end of it, it felt like I had done that 50,000 times, but that was like the first time. Anyway.
Yeah, it's exactly true. It was a strange, almost like a reunion where
Yes.
you meet people again after time. Except it was I mean, absolutely wonderful. And to, I think both of your points about the strength of networking online, it's not like we skipped a beat. There was nothing missing from the online connections. And then being able to get together in person just made it even more enriched.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, Erin, tell us about what you do and what you're an actor and you are executive director of this theater company. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you changed.
Yeah, thank you. I'm here in New York City, same as Kelly, and I'm a professional actor. And I co-founded this theater company in 2009 to be a place where actors could create their own work, as opposed to waiting around for the phone to ring or to receive an email saying that you've been cast in something. What would it be like to produce our own work? And here we are we've just started our 12th season. And so it is, especially in New York City, where it is kind of a theater mecca, if you will. It is so important to be able to tell your story and get people to listen, because there's so much art being created here. And so I rely heavily on being able to use on any networking source that I can. Of course, during the pandemic, all live theater shut down. But we were like, no, there's got to be something we can do. And so we just said, well, we're all on Zoom anyway. We and many other theater companies decided to create work online. And so we found a way to do so, to approximate the live experience as much as we could. And one of the reasons that Kelly and I became acquainted was in me trying to find new and innovative ways to meet people when I no longer have the social outings. I can't go to a cocktail party or go to a show and meet someone in the lobby during intermission. What could I do? And so meeting and working with Kelly has been just amazing with that.
And how did you, I mean, I saw some readings of plays on Zoom. And Kelly said you were very inventive in how you did it. So can you tell us something about how you did it?
Sure. So it was, we did it bit by bit, trying to figure out how to approximate this experience. So the first thing was, we didn't have printed scripts. When we did these performances, we had the script on our screen just below the camera. And so I could be reading my lines and looking like I'm looking to the person, like the person I'm talking to. And so that was one of the things we did. We also employed the use of backgrounds. We did a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, where we also imported using Snapchat filters that imported into Zoom. We were able to create magical effects. Like in A Midsummer Night's Dream, there's a famous scene where Bottom, one of the characters, turns into a donkey. And so we were able to affix a donkey head
That's so cool.
to this actor. And when the actor spoke, the mouth moved, the ears moved, the head and eyebrows moved. It was so much fun. We even had fairies on the screen that were these, and if I moved around like this, the fairy would fly in and out. So I mean, it looked ridiculous if you had a camera on me watching what I was doing. But and they had our faces inside on the fairy. So if you got really close to the camera, you would see our little faces. And so I mean, we kept learning about more and more ways to integrate technology to tell a story. And in the end, we ended up using a program called OBS that allows you, very similar to StreamYard, to take in video from Zoom, put it through OBS and stream it, and then be able to move the boxes around. We had green screens, so our images were actually cut out of our backgrounds and then put onto a singular background. So it looked like we were in the same room together. So much so that I could turn to my side either way and be able to look at the person next to me, although I'm just looking at my room right now. And it was wonderful. So it created this sense of immediacy and a sense of a connection with people that our audiences were craving. And what was most important to us was to continue the artistic conversation so that when we went live again, we didn't lose all of that time and we were developing audiences as we went.
So these people, you didn't suddenly come back after 2 years and say, we're here, right? You know?
Exactly. When it was, we were entering our 10th season. So this was supposed to be the time where we have a dog here who's decided he doesn't want to be in my lap anymore. Live conversation. That we were about to step into this major season, and all of a sudden we get shut down like everyone. So there was no way I was letting that momentum go. And I think momentum is a key factor in networking as well. Wouldn't you say, Kelly, that the idea of like continuing on relationships and not letting them go stale?
Right. Well, you think about with the Seeing Place, your audience, like you have active and robust following on Facebook. Just sort of say, hey, well, there's no live theater. As soon as there's some live theater, we'll let you know, right? Like that group could sit there just kind of gathering dust for 2 years. And all of a sudden, you think about, all right, how can I engage them? And how can I engage a new audience? I think this is where you have been so absolutely brilliant in thinking about, all right, what is the experience for the person I want to connect with? And then, by the way, it's not just a person in New York anymore. It's not just a person in the tri-state area who can get into Manhattan for theater. I can connect with anyone who's got an internet connection and loves theater. And I'm really thinking about our conversation when I was interviewing you in the book for the book bonus, the fact that, people can bemoan that Broadway was closed. Unless you're someone who, because of, distance, physical, some other, challenge or hurdle or limitation, you're now bringing live theater to an audience that was excluded, which I think was hugely valuable.
Yeah. This is not just a geographical issue. It's also an accessibility issue for many people. There are physical reasons why certain people aren't able to make it to the theater at all, not just in New York City, but anywhere. Exactly. And it's, I think, an important direction that we're headed in is to provide accessibility and the ability for people to have the same experience as someone who is able-bodied and can go down to, I noticed someone said hi from the East Village. That's where our theater is. There are some
That's Jonathan Borstein. Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us.
We haven't been able, there are people who cannot travel. They cannot travel for finances. They cannot travel because they're disabled. There are many reasons why. So we have to start thinking outside of the box. How do we engage people and not think of these things as barriers, but exactly as Paula is saying, accessibility is key. Right. And it's something that we're very, very proud to be embracing as a company.
Did you find, what do you see going forward? Have you returned to live productions? I've been seeing these, Stefan has been putting these up, but I'm not sure if they're now or they were.
Yeah, we just closed a show on January 16th. Okay. Luckily, despite Omicron, we were able to do all 16 of our live performances, which Kelly was at a few of them. And we were very, very lucky to be able to do that. And now we're just trying to figure out how many more productions we can do this year and what's going to make the most sense going forward.
I love that we've got this image up. So the Queer Witch project, that was a really interesting play because you designed that for the virtual audience, but now you're having to think, oh, right, this was not like Rose, this is not like the challenges of like, how do we take, how do we take Midsummer Night's Dream onto Zoom? This is how do we take a play that was designed for Zoom? How do we make it the same rich experience off of
fascinating,
Zoom?
Yeah. And are you doing, I just as in the wake, as you speak about the accessibility and the global nature of, what live stream can do, are you just doing some plays also for on live stream?
We're doing, it depends. So the unions that govern the theater are trying to figure out the best way to protect intellectual property and make sure it's monetized so that the artists all make a living. And how do we embrace this new technology? There has been a little bit of an argument between both of the performers unions for the stage and for the screen, who has jurisdiction, and no one has quite figured that out yet. And so we're kind of waiting to see how that's going to go. In the meantime, there have been some small contracts that make it possible. Hi, puppy. Yes, I've got a dog here who's like, you're talking very loudly and you have light on you. So yes, this one right here. Hello.
There we go. The star of the show.
Always with the ears. It's too much. So we're trying to figure out the best way to move forward with the contracts that we're given. Our plan is to try to do a hybrid. Certainly when we do a live production, to try to find a way to do at least one performance where it is streamed, and then continue to use in between larger shows, doing smaller readings the way we did them during the pandemic.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I guess, you're limited, you're by the unions and what you can do. So you're waiting.
Yes. It's just, it's a new frontier, but that's really the case, I think, in all industries. They're all trying to figure out what to do now that we're coming through where the pandemic is now becoming endemic. Things like working from home. These are things that everyone's struggling with. What's the new normal? And we're just trying to remain innovative. And I think one benefit that we have is that since we're still relatively small, we don't have our feet in the sand too much. And so we're a little more nimble. We can kind of go with the wind and make changes. And this is where I'm so grateful for all of the things in Kelly's book, all of the different ideas, all of the case studies. So we can say, oh, we haven't tried that yet. Let's do that for networking so we can continue to build our audience.
And like let's say what platforms have been most valuable for you in growing your audience, would you say?
For us, it's mostly been Twitter and Instagram to a certain extent. Facebook's been difficult because we haven't quite mastered the algorithm. It seems to change for Facebook pages quite a bit. What things they value, the little tricks behind the scenes that you can do to get noticed. But I think that most important for us is that we are present everywhere. And that it's up to date so that people, wherever they happen to be, we also happen to be there in some way. And then I can continue to cross-reference and continue to draw people in and get them to our website. Mostly we try to get them to our newsletter, which is the most up-to-date way to know what's going on with us.
Well, one of the things I love, Erin, is how you personally kind of upped your networking game during COVID. And when I think about, as you shared with me, that, people who are founders of smaller nonprofit theaters, you're so busy in your own work, you think about the old, like, put your head down and do the good work, but you need the network, right? And you're so isolated doing your own thing and not being able to connect with each other, and how then through the things that brought you together, but everyone can say, well, that's fine, Kelly. Yeah, people did webinars and you attended them, and like, what's so great about Erin? But it's how you watched and observed the other people in those Zoom events, and then you researched them. And then when you saw them again on a Zoom event, you reached out and sent them a direct message and said, we're showing up at the same things. We should connect. I also think your willingness to explore new communities, and I'm thinking in particular the one that you realize was founded by a woman who loves the theater,
Yes.
Well, guess
Yes,
what?
Adrian. Yes.
Tell them
Adrian's Network, which is an amazing networking organization that pivoted in their own right. They were always in person. And then during the pandemic, they went online. And now there's a hybrid. So there is an ability for us to be, and I'm speaking to people in every industry. And what's so exciting about Adrian's network is that we're all there to help. It's not just what can I take, but what can I offer, and listening to what other people need and finding how you can use your own network to support them, because then we all win. And that sounds very Pollyanna-ish, but I really do believe that we're not here to compete with one another. We're here to support each other's business.
Okay, we have a question from our producer, Stefan. Hi from backstage. And he says, what does Kelly think about the whole Facebook pay for play thing? It's so obvious how much they control. Thoughts on strategy?
I left Facebook.
Oh, that's right. You said it in your
I know.
that was one of the things you did.
One of my networking things during the I would say sort of pandemic-ish was I left Facebook, because part of it was, the way the platform was working and the value I got from it, and was like, you know what? My original reason for going on Facebook was it was a way for me to keep in touch with my nephews. They're not there anymore. And I was like, why am I still a member of a club that I don't enjoy, like, showing up for the meetings? Like, why am I doing this? So I left. There's my strategy, Stefan. Might not be what you want to hear, but I was like, no, like, what am I doing this for? Like, to feed their algorithm? Is it having to buy some Facebook ads? I'm like, this is not giving me value. I'm going to find another networking venue where I can meaningfully connect with people. And that list that's in the book bonus, I mean, one of the things I say that, like, in terms of network and community that gave me value during the pandemic was going to the Seeing Place Theater live theater events, because they structured it. It wasn't like, oh, here's the passcode and you're going to get to go and watch a video for 24 hours. It was live theater on Zoom. So I had like a theater date. And then they did conversations with the actors at the end of it, and we could talk about the play. And I could sit with other people who enjoy the theater. I
did that for one, and I turned out the lights, and I just had my laptop, and like as though I was in the theater. It was very cool, Yeah,
and you can even stream it to your TV. Oftentimes, you can get the YouTube app or whatever. So we have people who we would, in our confirmation email, we will say, light some candles, get your favorite dessert and drink, and come spend an evening with us.
I mean, think about it versus going to the theater. I didn't have to worry about, making some noise with my butterscotch candies and pissing off other people around me. And I could have, the wine. There was no food or drink in the theater. It's like, I am the theater. I can do all of this.
Exactly.
Oh, and when you did WIT, it was a lovely shared experience with one of my best friends who lives in Mexico City. So she and I were, on Signal, sending each other messages every once in a while watching you. And so even though we weren't in the theater together, we were at the theater together, and that was really, really fantastic. So yeah, there we go.
Just a quick plug that I will say, I do love to go to the theater.
Yes.
I did see the play, what am I thinking? Girl from the North Country.
Oh, what a wonderful musical. I'm sad it's closed.
Yes. And then when Omicron hit, then I didn't. But the doctor who was, in the show that I did, she's on call, she went to see a play. So I was trying to tell my family, if she goes, we should go. But anyway.
There were some Broadway epidemiologists who talked about the audiences themselves are very, very safe in a Broadway theater.
Dr. Derek cast was one who came out in the beginning that this is a safe place to go because
Yeah, because
everybody's masked
the
and
virus goes
everybody's
up
been checked.
and those spaces are huge.
Yeah.
And so everyone's masked. So the trick is keeping everyone masked, but most Broadway theaters stopped serving drinks so that there would be no reason to remove your mask at any point. And so it's the actors who are close to one another. That was more that's more what's been shutting things down. There was a really wonderful article in Deadline magazine that talked to these two epidemiologists and said that time, this was back in late December, that they hadn't had no reports of people getting COVID from going to the theater.
Okay. I just want to
online or offline, go to the theater. Go to the
right.
Yes. Yes. Tammy Ellen, tell us. I will read what she said. She highly recommends downloading Build Your Dream Network bonus and reading and rereading Kelly's Forward. It was an eye opener, a relatable recap that we all need post pandemic, and a lot of her. And today, by the way, I found myself being overly chatty with a receptionist and hygienist at the dentist's office for another pandemic dental cleaning.
That comment is very, very common, and that Rose, that gets to, it's such a Tammy, perfect timing. That gets around to where you and I had started this conversation this evening. That the network where people our networks have shrunk is that acquaintance level network, right? Like the receptionist you always see when you go to the dentist, or the barista you always saw at Starbucks, and this phenomenon of people having very long conversations with people they gave short kind of
and at the beginning when we were thanking, you went to the supermarket or you went to the drugstore and you'd say thank you for being here.
Right. But think about people that you would never have, regardless of thanking them for now being frontline workers, people you would have been like, hey, thanks anyway, here's my credit card, pay for my dental cleansing, see you in 6 months, right? And we'd be out the door. Now we're like, hi, how are you? Hey, I mean, fundamentally, like human beings are social beings. Fundamentally, we belong together. We are not, this is the equivalent of putting us all in, I want to say
isolation cell.
Exactly, right? The perfect crime is actually to put someone in involuntary isolation, because that will kill you. Relationships, having people around us is good for not only our mental health, our physical health. And being forced to be separate from other people is bad for your health. And
one of the things I think I told you is that I read, I think it was in the Times, but doctors are saying they're concerned about the population that's over 50 because they're not getting out. And whereas they used to go either to work or to the store or to the post office, they're not going anymore. So even those small, and that's also social, because I knew people whose parents, let's say, they just ordered everything online, were scared to go out, and then you're even if you're lucky enough to have one other person in the house, you're just what do you for months you're looking at one other person, and it's really so limiting.
Right. So there's that aspect of moving around, but then there's also this aspect of, what our heart and our mind needs in terms of staying healthy, and we need human contact. And so this is why things like the Seeing Place Theater, where they are doing this live theater. So even though we are having to stay, in our own four walls, we can have what approximates, going to Broadway to have a show because of the way they treated that. This is where, I'll go back where Rose and you and I talked at the beginning, where some people are like, oh my God, this virtual thing. Well, if you treat it as this, well, it's just technology, rather than this is a venue where human beings convene, you can kind of inch your way a little closer to the meaningful relationships that we all need, that are good for our mental, our physical health, our mental health, and for our careers as well.
Yeah.
So
Tammy Ellen's giving us more. Invisalign sales rock skyrocketing. People want their teeth to look nice on Zoom. Right? I have Invisalign, and I take it out when I do Zoom because it's enough that I have my glasses. So if I had the braces on, it looks, it's another shiny thing. Stefan, the pandemic has been okay for introverts, but for extroverts from like myself, oi to the vey, which he likes to say. And I just want to acknowledge, I think Joyce Sullivan has been listening and awesome. She's saying awesome conversation. So love hearing how we are all evolving our networking connections, humans finding humans everywhere.
Well, and I just want to throw in there too is that now I'm going to say there's a caveat. You have to have an internet connection, right? To do a lot of this networking that we're talking about. But beyond that, it is a great equalizer because you don't have to get fancy clothes. I don't have to have a fancy car. I don't even have to pay for transportation. People don't know whether I have value or don't have value other than the contribution that I make. Similarly, for our theater company, we, for the first time, had a review in the New York Times for a show that we did, and it was our first online show. It would have never happened without the fact that we were doing it online. Right. Because they didn't know, they're going to a 75-seat theater, and therefore maybe that theater isn't as good as this 500-seat theater. So we were looked at just as critically and just as favorably as any other theater company. And interestingly, we had not planned on promoting the show to press. It was our first one online. We just wanted to kind of tinker with it and see how we were. Days beforehand, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put together a press kit just in case. Maybe I'll invite a few people who know and love us. And wouldn't you know it, the New York Times reached out to us based on our marketing and said we'd like to come. And I was like, well, I'll just get you my press kit right now. There you go. And sure enough, several, we had ended up with full color photos. My photo was on the front of the art section. And then we had additional photos that were in the regular art section. Would never have happened without the technology making things more equal.
I'm so glad you raised that, Erin. The whole, we can look at, online and relationship building online and connections online. It can just be a dumpster fire of, nonsense and hideousness, but there's also this incredible beauty that for many of us, it can be a phenomenal equalizer, as Erin highlighted, because it's all about the value that you bring, right? And the engagement and the curiosity. And all of a sudden, Erin's little theater company, she says, like someone else would have thought before COVID, is, the show to see, right? Because of how they are presenting. And there's not like, oh, well, it's just this theater company. Or you think about the connections and doors that you can meet because you decide to step into these platforms, in a transparent human way, as opposed to, you think about when we do real networking in person, the stuffed shirt or the obnoxious person you don't want to talk to anyway at those events. So.
Yeah. And I'll say this, because I've been, I was on Clubhouse a little bit, but then I feel Twitter Spaces is more authentic, and I'm on Twitter a lot. So, and you look at those little circles, and everybody's the same size. And I've met people who I would never speak to. I was in a poetry conversation with an Arabic man who was translating Arabic poetry, a Kurdistan woman, and and myself. It was like we would never meet even at in the East Village, with a poetry reading.
Right. So, well, this is why the beauty of sort of saying, go back to what I said earlier, like the need to be amphibious and to be able to embrace these platforms, because you may enhance and nourish your network like you never imagined. But just treat them as, okay, I was at a poetry reading on Twitter.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
now from there, was it just, hey, once I stumbled into a bookstore and there was a poetry reading and I grabbed a chair and it was really interesting and that was fine and it was once, it was great? Or over time, does this become something different? So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Erin. Thank you so much. You had a great story. Oh, here's the New York Times story. That's fantastic.
That's
Wow.
you with an apple.
A scene-based production, a theater production, and a play per view reunion reading by the 2007. Oh, so they also spotlighted the Cherry Lane Theater.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. And our theater. Well,
That's
we're the same, according to the New York Times. What do they know? They're just the New York Times.
Well, I hope I will see one of your productions, possibly.
That would be wonderful. See, we have to make it a threesome. Maybe the three of us go out to see someone else's theater that we're trying to support together.
Yeah.
All
Awesome.
sorts of things. Well, there's a few of your plays. Like I'd like to see, the Queer Witch Conspiracy. I want to see that again. I'd see that again online, or I would see that again, a reading, or, gosh, to see that in person. But your production recently of Wit was so just absolutely breathtaking. And if I could really be selfish, that's what I'd like to grab all my friends and fill that theater for that.
Oh my goodness, that would be amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Erin, and really terrific to have you join us. Thank you.
So nice to meet you. And of course, I have already sent a connection request via LinkedIn so that we can be office buddies, as Kelly said. So, and on Twitter as well. So we will be conversing even more.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you. Okay. So that was really fun. Kelly gets things done. I said to Kelly, wouldn't it be fun to have somebody from one of the people you interviewed could join us? And, and she said, made it, we got it. So
get it to be Erin. And I think sometimes too, this thing with networking, I think there's a lot of times, people want a checklist, or they want, give me an example of that. And Erin and what she's personally done and what the Steam Place Theater has done is just such a beautiful example of showing bigger possibilities rather than feeling like, oh, this networking thing's harder, or it's a bit of loss, or, everything's, oh my God, it was so much better, back in 2019. This is just really this approaching it with such optimism and saying, all right, we've been handed this, lemon. How many different types of lemonade can we make with it?
Right. And one thing that intrigues me, because I think, and I've seen you talk about, and I think you talked about it on Good Morning America, yay, is this idea that women and men network differently. And can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. So that's sort of where my research is taking me next. So after 5 years of Build Your Dream Network, ready to dive into researching and writing another book. And there was a really interesting study out of Kellogg, and it's a great study in terms of the clarity on it, but it's not the only one, because it was a study of regarding communication patterns of MBA students, and that kind of people in that leadership program. And it distinctly showed that the women who were successful in those leadership programs built their network differently. But I have a banker's box full of research, so that's not the only study, but it's a really nice, discrete, clear one. And what it is, and we've hit on this throughout our conversation, Rose, that there's two types of networks. There's a narrow, deep network, and there's a broad, shallow network. Men are typically the ones who build the broad, shallow network. That's that network that's built on activity. That's the one that's shrunk for most people, shrunk during
So
COVID.
seeing each other at a football game, or
your commute to work, your like movement is involved in that, and it's acquaintance, because we may not have this sort of depth. Whereas the narrow, deep network, that's where you know a lot about people and you've invested time in them, and it's probably one, because it's typically associated with women, that it's one that's built on conversation. You know a lot about them. You know, you have dialogue, you do all this kind of stuff. And I talk about those two networks, that network structure in Build Your Dream Network. But what their studies have shown with successful women is these women ensure that their network includes both of those networks. They are as invested in building and leveraging a broad, shallow network because there's strength in that network. It's got diversity. It cuts across industries and sectors and titles and all sorts of good stuff. But they also are very focused on who's this inner circle that's got my back that I can also turn to for advice and mentorship and guidance. And they have both of these things, and they ensure that they have those to fuel their career. So that's what I'm working on now, Rose.
That sounds fascinating. That's very cool. And I can think of, ways that, I guess, in a lot of ways, I guess like with Stefan, who I know for years, through Sri. I mean, we know each other, and it's, and the people that I know through that is sort of, I know them on a personal basis, through social media and through meeting them. Whereas maybe some of the people I've met, like in Twitter Spaces, I know in a broader way. I know what they're doing on a platform, but I don't know much about their
right.
life.
And you might jump in and see them on another Twitter space, and you're like, "Hey, great! Oh my God! Like we met at the poetry one, and now I see you on this one on modern architecture. How cool! Like, good to see you again." And so, like the person you bump into because you show up at the same, activity.
Right. Or I go in a book space, let's say, and they're, they know something about writing books, and, that's my next, and I want to learn about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see these people based on these common, and you might start seeing the same people, or you might just see that person only showing up at the poetry readings. You're like, okay, there's my poetry reading friend. And you need to know anything more about them? Maybe not, right? But it's interesting that this one study and then multiple other studies and things that I've looked at, there is this definite pattern with women's success really being a factor of the relationships, and not in a, hey, do you know all the honcho right people, but a factor of what is the composition of my network, and am I ensuring that I have both these acquaintance relationships as well as people who have got my back and are going to give me some really honest, critical advice to help me further my business, my venture, or my career, whatever it is.
Okay. And when you were growing up, I know you became a lawyer. I don't know if I talked about that, so I will just say I know you became a lawyer in Toronto.
I didn't pop out of the womb a networking expert. No.
And when you were young, let's say 10, did you know what you wanted to be then? No.
I had no clue. Because I thought about that before. I mean, I probably thought more about things I didn't imagine doing. So I was an avid reader as a child. My mother was she went back to school when I was sort of, that age, like you say, 10. So sort of like 10, 11, 12, 13, my mother was back at school, and she was doing a lot of courses that, English literature kind of things. And she basically said to me, there's the bottom shelf, just put the books back and you can read them. So I was reading Margaret Atwood and Alice Munro and Robertson Davies and all these great Canadian authors at a young age. And I could tell you at that age, I would have said to you, I am never imagining writing a book, because in my mind, like a career as a writer, like that's what you had to do to be a writer. You had to be like Margaret Atwood. That's a bit too intimidating to think of, like doing that. But I regret that, university education is so expensive. It wasn't expensive in the grand scheme of things for, the world when I went to university, got my undergraduate, because it enabled me to explore. And then it was always a sort of a thought that, all right, you get your undergraduate and then you go off and get a graduate degree. And just by default, I went and became a lawyer. As much as I enjoyed the profession.
You didn't pursue becoming a writer or a professor, let's say.
No, that was never in the cards until it was in the cards. Yeah.
And just a quick question, but we were talking about how you find a network. How do you, find what organization you want, not organization, but, any top 3 ways for finding a good group to belong to?
That's where, I mean, that's such a great question, because I think a lot of people think about that and what they want to do. And that's where I sort of think, all right, well, what is it that you're seeking? Like, what is it that you need? When you think about when Aaron, that the organizations that brought together small independent theater companies to help and support them and more best practices for navigating the pandemic, right? She didn't need an umbrella organization for nonprofit theaters until, that professional networking, until it was like, oh shoot, like I need to learn what other people are doing, because I got to rethink what I'm doing. And so think about, what is it that you need? Like, what is the gap in the community? One of the examples,
sort of a why question.
Right. Why? Like, why, what do I need? Where can I get it? And why this group? Verily Crow's one of the examples, the case studies in Build Your Dream Network. She was switching from corporate life to entrepreneurship. She knew she needed to find a new community of women entrepreneurs who had also made that career change, or were thinking about making that career change, because her existing network couldn't understand why she'd want to give up a fancy corner office and a big paycheck to be an entrepreneur, right? So she needed a new network. So what is the gap that you're feeling? Where can you fill that in? And when I say why that group is, that's where you can ask other people to, tell you more about an organization before you sign up and join, so that you can ensure that, your expectations, are in alignment with what that organization or group can deliver.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. And my last thing, which I'll ask you, and I ask everybody, you questioned me why I only asked for 3, and I just said that's how my tweet started, because I didn't want to ask everybody for 10, but you can give me as many as you like. So who are some women to follow that we should know about?
Oh, okay. These are 3 change agents that I would say, these are absolutely women to follow. So Sherelle Dorsey, she's the new author of the book, Upper Hand. She is the founder of The Plug. And Sherelle is just fantastic. So she is definitely, woman to follow, and author supporting author. Get her book. The next one I would say is Kat Calvin. She is the founder of Spread the Vote and co-founder of Project.
I booked her as a guest on. We booked her as a guest on Three Show. Yeah.
Yeah, she is fantastic in terms of making sure that you don't realize like how much you can't do if you don't have government issued ID. And it's not just as easy as going down to the DMV and getting it. And the work that she is doing to make sure that people have the IDs that not only enable them to vote, but also to, get the goods and services that they deserve as, U.S. citizen.
She's an attorney, right?
She originally started her career as an attorney, but now, I actually met her originally because of startup innovation stuff, and then she's moved over into this social enterprise. And then number 3, fabulous Lauren Malian, who is the CEO of Digital Undivided, marketer, brander. She's been on television. She had a winery, award-winning winery at one point. I mean, there's nothing this woman can't do. She is just unbelievable.
That's great. Thank you. I will put out a tweet with all the women's names so everybody can follow them. And one thing, when people see that, I encourage them to share it. And like my last guest the other week, Laura Gassner-Otting, when I put out that tweet, these other women started, and we had another like 50 or 100 names that generated. So that's awesome. All good, and what we want to see. So yes, thank you so much, Kelly. It was such a treat to have you. And before we leave, I want to thank Stefan, and I want to thank my sponsor, which is Women in Technology International. They are based in, they're really worldwide. And it was started by a woman who I think sent an email to people, and the email kept getting reshared, and now they have thousands of people, in different communities, and they do webinars and they do, networking groups and things, and they're going to be doing there was a glass ceiling report that was done in 1995, and they're going to do an update of that. So we'll all be interested to see that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's an amazing organization. I'm just absolutely thrilled that they are, part of this wonderful Women to Follow that you have created, Rose. So I've been one of your women to follow on Twitter, and
well, I mean, the background is, I don't know if it's on I don't think it was on my Medium page, which is where I have a lot of but you were my second woman to follow. So there you go.
I am honored to be number 2 in all of this, and just like so much fun to hang with you and do this. And I'm just, thank you for bringing in Erin. That was just really special. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll let you go. I'll meet you backstage, and I'll just make a few announcements. Okay. Thank you. All right. So that was really fun. And I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I'll be following up. And I just want to announce my next guest in 2 weeks. It will be, do we have a card? Let's see. It will be Ilan Bobet, who is head of operations for Morosa and the founder of Tech Activist Organization, which is doing, bringing technology and teaching it to young people and people who are activists. And also want to tell you about Sri Srinivasan's next show on Sunday, the guest will be Stephen Roberts, who has been a journalist for 50 years. And his latest book is Koki, A Life Well Lived. So he's the husband of Koki Roberts. And my producer is doing a show, and he will be interviewing Mitra Kalita, which is very exciting. And his show will be Wednesday, February 16th at 7 p.m. And his show is about social media for social good. So we don't want to miss that. So thank you so much for everyone for joining me. Send me any comments or questions, and I will see you next time. Thank you.